Have you ever wondered how many wins will my team get before the season even starts? Well, today I'm going to be taking a look at basketball, baseballs, and football's Pythagorean theorem. I'm also going to talk about Kansas's national championship. I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on that. I'm also going to talk about how my bracket ended up and what my thoughts were behind those picks, and some key stats that you may not know in the basketball industry that are very important and impactful on the basketball industry right now. First on tap, we have Kansas National Championship. I'm so excited, but I thought, no way this team is going to win a national championship with David McCormick, Ochai Agbaji, Christian Brown, Jalen Wilson. Not 1 point. We had so many teams that were better than us all season, and I think a team like Kentucky, if we played a team like Kentucky in the national championship, I thought we were going to lose. I did. But, I mean, I think we did get a little lucky. I think we did. We played a 10 seed Miami in the Elite Eight. You don't see that very often. You don't. I know they're pretty good, and it showed in the first half. I don't know what we were down at the first half, but we came rolling in the second half. So we kind of came back in 2 games, and even the Providence game, we didn't play that good. So I never thought we would win the national championship this year. And the fact that we beat a team with North Carolina, we also got lucky with Baycott, kind of being injured. But McCormick played his butt off. He probably played his best game all year, and we all just kind of stepped it up. We had some seniors on the team that were pretty good, but never once did I think that this team would win a national championship. Not one bit. So in the first half, we had my family. We were not that we were so superstitious coming out of the start of the second half. We all had to switch clothes, had to mute the TV, had to sip our water, like every 5 seconds, making sure like every offensive possession, we scored. We were so superstitious. But back to the first half, Jalen Wilson missed so many bunnies that game. Me and my dad we just couldn't watch, and I could not watch the last 5 minutes of the first half. Ochai played pretty good, but David really played his best game all year, and that jump hook to win us that game at the end was insane. I feel like the thing that most coaches don't understand is there's like a flow in their rhythm offensively. They preach, like, let's get in a rhythm offensively, but like as a player, you want to get out and run. You don't really want to stop and wait for the defense to set up. You want to go, you want to punch them in the throat, that sort of thing. And that's what we kind of did in the second half. I felt we did a better job of getting out in transition. And Jawan Harris, by the way, he played awesome. He played great on RJ Cole all game. The fact that Carolina's going to have Baycott, RJ Cole, and what's his name? He what was it, number 5? I can't think of his name right now. But Caleb Love could be coming back too. So, I mean, that team's going to be a force to be reckoned with next year too. But not once did I think Kansas would win a national championship this year. And every single time I went to a Kansas game this year, they got blown out. So Bill Self called us before the game even started not to come to the Final Four. And we made sure not to get to the Final Four, and it paid off. But yeah, I'm so thankful that they won a national championship. It's actually like the first time I've actually like remembered a national championship. Because, 2008, I was only 2, so I didn't really know what was going on, but that was a 6 shot. But I feel like this team was a lot better, but they had to play a great Memphis team with Derrick Rose, whereas this team, I feel like they kind of get a little bit lucky. But you know what, it doesn't matter because we got that ring. That's all that matters. All right, so I'm super thankful, super happy for Kansas, and I can't wait for next year. Okay, moving on. I'm gonna be talking about my bracket now. It wasn't too good like a lot of people, but there was some bright stuff, like I did pick Kansas to win the national championship. That's always good. You always got to have the national championship. You always got to have somewhat of the Final Four in there. And yeah, I think, let's check it real quick. Okay, so I had Texas Tech and Kansas in the national championship. Wasn't a bad pick, but I thought Texas Tech could easily beat Duke because they had those transfers and Duke was full of young talent. I didn't really know. I hate Duke, by the way, in case you don't know, just like my dad. And yeah, I thought there's no way a Duke team that young could beat a great Texas Tech team that's experienced with a great coach. And not to mention Coach K is really good too. But I didn't think that they would win, and they ended up making the Final Four, so congrats to Duke. So I had that. I had Texas Tech, Tennessee. Tennessee was playing really good in the SEC championship. They beat Kentucky. I was like, okay, I think this team can hang with a Kansas team like us, but I didn't think that. And then they ended up losing to Michigan. Like, I don't know how. I hate the Big Ten. The Big Ten is so bad. I say it every year. They're so bad. They have 5 really okay teams, but no superior team. It's each and every year. Like they haven't had one team make it in like the past 3 years. Like make it to the Final Four. Like one team hasn't made the Final Four, I think, in like 2019. But yeah, that's insane. Like I don't really like the Big Ten. I don't really think that they're that good, and I think they're a little overhyped. Every single year they're overhyped. Okay. You're probably asking, like, what's my other Final Four team? I took a shot in the dark. I went Virginia Tech. They beat Duke in the ACC tournament, and I was like, dude, this team's good. Like, they have an identity like some other teams don't, and I thought they were rolling into the tournament. They're going to play a Texas team that doesn't really know how to score, and I felt they were the better scoring team. I know Texas is pretty good defensively, but I'll trust that offense more than that defense. Boy, did that backfire. They lost in the first round to Texas. And, yeah, I'm a okay Texas fan. I like their football because, A, it's better than, well, Kansas. But we don't really like their basketball because, well, Kansas is better than Texas basketball. And so I took that big old risk, and I put Virginia Tech into the Final Four. I didn't really know who was coming out of there, and it ended up being North Carolina. And who would have thought 15 seed St. Peter's made it to the Elite Eight? You never know. It's super hard to predict, but it is what it is. I still ended up winning my friend's bracket pool, so that's awesome. That's where it's at. Let's see, what else did I pick? I also had like North Carolina beating Baylor. I love North Carolina. I like them a lot. They're probably like my third favorite college basketball team. I just like their colors, just like most people do. But yeah, why not? Let's pick North Carolina over Baylor, especially with them losing Chamba Chachua. I thought like they can't contain Baycott. St. Peter's obviously beating Kentucky. Never expected that. I had Kentucky losing to Virginia Tech, so it didn't really matter for me. Arizona. Okay, that's a big disappointment for them. But I'll say it again. Big Ten, the Pac-12 are not legit. It's every single year. They just have, okay, maybe one good team, maybe two good teams, but then they crap their pants in the March Madness tournament, and they haven't played anybody all year. They just play, like, Illinois. I mean, they have Kofi Cockburn, and, they can't seem to find it. They always lose in the second. They were a number 1 seed last year, 4 seed this year. Don't even make the Sweet 16. I don't know what's up with them. But yeah, like they played a great TCU team. That was a great game. I don't know how Arizona won that game. TCU got rigged with calls. TCU was far better, the superior team. Then they played a team by the name of Houston, who's got some dogs on their team. And I watched one Pac-12 game, and that was the championship between UCLA and Arizona. And it was kind of the same thing as the NBA, in my opinion. They call a little bit more tic-tacs than some other conferences like the Big 12, the ACC, and even the Big 10. Like, they played a Houston team that would punch you in the throat, and Arizona wasn't used to that, and that's why they got beat by 12. And I was like, there's kind of a theme. This is just me, but my experience playing basketball, on the western side of the U.S., they call a lot more fouls. Now, I haven't played in the western part, but that's just me. I feel like there's a lot of, you got your Hollywood stars, they're paid actors, they're really good at flopping, that sort of thing. You get your Eastern Coast people, you get your dogs, and they're ready to punch you in the mouth, those sort of guys. People from tough Philly, and they play a different type of basketball than people on this side. And then in the middle, you got your Kansas, Texas, they kind of play a little bit of both. But that's kind of how I view basketball and like how refs are kind of officiating right now, which I don't like. That's part of the reason why I don't watch the NBA in the regular season. Speaking of the NBA playoffs is going on right now. I think I like the Miami Heat. Yeah, I like the Miami Heat this year because they have a lot of people were talking about, they don't have that it factor. They don't have like one really good player. I'm like, they have 8 different people that can go off. They have Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Buckets, uh, Bam Adebayo. They have so many people that can put up 10, 15 a game. Tyler Hero's another one of them. Hate him because he went to Kentucky, but I like them winning it all this year. I feel like they have the tools and pieces to get the job done. All right, just a quick backwards, real quick. Let's just go back to Iowa, who lost to Richmond, the Spiders of Richmond. Again, Big 12 or Big 10, excuse me. Yeah, Big 10, just not where it's at. Auburn, another classic example of having the young pieces, but Bruce Pearl as their head coach. Like, are we really gonna trust him? Bill Self has such a great advantage over so many different coaches. Another one, Purdue. Matt Painter, you've done nothing. Every single year, you get some tall white kid that's 7 foot and you don't use him to his best ability. They had a kid that's 7'4". They have a top 5 pick with Jaden Ivey. You barely get into the Sweet 16. Like, you barely beat a Texas team that doesn't have a single draft pick this year. So yeah, I mean, you don't really trust those Big 10 teams because of their coaching. There's not Tom Izzo's really good, but he just can't recruit. He just gets really tough people, but they just don't know how to score. Every single year they rebound, but they just can't score, and they play really good defense. But that was a really good game too against Duke that they played. But yeah, those are my picks, and that's what I picked for the March Madness this year. So now I'm going to talk about baseball, footballs, and basketball's Pythagorean theorem. Now, a guy by the name of Bill James kind of created sports analytics, and I read this in my book called Mathletics, that he created this Pythagorean theorem that would help teams figure out how many runs they need to get a certain winning percentage. And that's really cool because he just took runs scored and runs allowed, and I'll put it right here so you guys can see it. So this is what it looks like, and that's kind of what he used to create winning percentage and how you can predict that. So people in the football, basketball industry, they created, here's the football, here's the basketball. They created these to see, like, this is how a winning percentage can be determined, how many points we need to score all year. And that's it just came back down to the basics. But there's the basics, and then there's the advanced stuff. Most fans, and I'm just going with the NBA right now, all right? We're just going to do the NBA right now. But here's some advanced stats you don't really know about, and I'm going to talk to you about them. So first one is PER. It's player efficiency rating. It's the measure of a per minute production standardized so that the league average is 15. So it kind of takes into a bunch of stuff: points, steals, rebounds, blocks, all that sort of thing, and just makes it into one rating. And that's kind of cool. You can kind of see, like, if you like a certain person based on their PER, or you can also take into account if their shooting percentage is better. You may look at their field goal percentage or their 3-point percentage. Instead of looking at 2, can you look at 1? This is true shooting percentage, the measure of a shooting efficiency that takes into account 2-point field goals and 3-point field goals and free throws. So yeah, that's pretty cool. You can it's just one stat. It's not multiple. They put them together and it's one. All right. Next is 3-point rate. It's pretty easy. I mean, it's just the number of percentage. It's the percentage of a player that shoots from 3-point range. You best believe I'm looking for a ton of players with a high 3-point attempt rate. That's pretty cool. They just, he attempts it this many times a game, which is insane. Like, how do you figure that out? But that's what fascinates me about this sort of thing. That's pretty cool. Free throw attempt rate. James Harden's probably like number 1 on that. Offensive rebounding percentage. You can figure out what percentage of the time a player is going to get the offensive rebound or a defensive rebound, total rebound percentage, there's assist percentage, which I don't know how you do. Again, like, all of these, you don't know how they get to these, but that's pretty cool how they can, like, take in assist, a steal, block percentage, turnovers percentage. Like, that's insane. How do you get that? Like, that's what fascinates me about all this kind of stuff. How do you figure out, like, what percentage of this equals this? And that's really cool. Another one that's really cool is usage percentage, and is like an estimate of like how many, like, what percent the team uses a certain player. So let's look at a team like the Suns. How well do they use Devin Booker? Did they use him a lot? Did they use him a little? Usage percentage calculates all of that into one simple stat. That's insane. That's awesome. Another one is offensive win shares. Like, let's see, the estimate number of wins contributed by a player due to offense. James Harden's up there. Defensive win shares. Opposite of offense, it's on defense. James Harden's way down that list. You know, that sort of thing. Win shares. Wow, that's really cool. They're just like, oh yeah, he contributed 22 wins this year on offense. He contributed only 5 on defense, so in total he contributed 27 total wins created by this player. That's insane. So all these, like, GMs are looking at, like, all these stats, which is insane, which you would have to look at multiple stats and learn how to combine them all, but now it's just one stat. That's insane. You can just look at one stat and it'll tell you everything. You won't have to look at multiple stats. That's what it's all about in basketball, math, getting it down to that one number, and that one number can mean the difference of trading or releasing a player, which is insane. That's awesome. Box plus minus is another one, is how many possessions a player contributed over the average league player. I don't know what that means, but yeah, that's awesome. Value over replacement player is a box score estimate of the points per 100 team possessions that a player contributed above a replacement level player translated to an average team in an 82 game season. So they can just be like, okay, this player is overpriced. We need to trade him based on our VORP. That's insane. That's so cool. I've kind of always thought, well, okay, James Harden, you make $40 million a year. Actually, no. Let's do it different. We've kind of used James Harden a lot in this, but let's think of another. Oh, John Wall. Guarantee you haven't heard that name in a while, but John Wall. How old are you? You're like 32, probably. I don't know. I'm just guessing, taking a shot in the dark, but you make probably $40 million. Let's fact check this. All right, John Wall. You, my friend, are 6'3". You are 31 years old. That was close. And you make $41 million a year. You've only played probably 20 games this season. Let me check. He's only played... He's played... How many games has John Wall played this season? He's played no games this season. And you make $41 million a year. Not once in your lifetime have you played one game this year. And because I know you've been hurt, but let's look at his points per game. So they traded for him. And they're like, yeah, let's pick up that 41. Why would you pick up that 41 million? The best he's averaged in his career is 20 points per game. 20. You're paying 40 million for a guy that only averaged at the best 20 games, or 20 points, 20 points per game. Why? Why would you trade for him? I mean, he's making so much money and he's not producing. Like, you gotta ship him out of Houston right away. And that's what mind boggles me. Like, my thought is, okay, you make 41 million. You best believe you got to be a young, under 25 guy for the future. After your rookie contract, I can max you up, pay you that 41 mil because you're capable of putting up 41 points per game. That's kind of not per game, but you're capable of putting up 40 type numbers 5-10 games each year. And that's kind of what I look at. Like, you look at a guy like Mikal Bridges, it's kind of gone up though. The salary is obviously going to increase just with each year, but Mikal Bridges is a great example. I was like, oh wow, he's only making $5 million. That's a bargain. Now I'm like, 15 million, is that still a bargain? I'm like, yeah, it still is. That's a huge bargain for Mikal Bridges. Stats that don't show up, like effort, like how are you supposed to calculate effort? That's kind of what that's the next tier. You got our base tier of stats. You got your points per game, that sort of thing. You got your advanced stats, you got your win shares, PER, that sort of thing. That kind of takes into those bottom tier ones, multiple of those bottom tiers, and creates those one single stat. Top tier. Nobody has kind of figured out this top tier yet. But how could you figure out how put it to one number? How much effort a player is giving on offense and defense? How cool would that be if you can be like, this guy has 85 out of 100 grit. Let's get him on the team. He has a ton of grit. That's awesome. That's great for the team. Oh, let's look at a guy like James Harden. What's his grit on defense? Probably like a 10 out of 100. So we don't know if we really want him. But you know what you're getting just based off of how he plays. But we got to get it to one number. Just like math, just like basketball. You got to get it down to one number. That's what's so fascinating about what I'm trying to learn right now. And that's really cool in my opinion. And I think that's kind of the next tier of sports analytics. And that's what it's going to try to become. And you got your two tiers right here. And we're gonna find out sooner or later how you can predict or soon calculate if a player has grit or not, which is pretty insane. But hopefully we can get that pretty sometime soon. All right, well, I think that's gonna do it for today's episode. I appreciate you taking the time and listening to this amazing podcast that I've created, and I'm so excited for the future of this podcast, and I can't wait to see you guys next time. Peace.